Assalamu alaikum to some of you and peace to the rest of you. Now that I'm back in the country in which I live and work, and my U.S. so-called vacation is over, I might actually have time to get stuff done, both at my job and in here for you all on YouTube. Those 3 weeks that I spent in the U.S. were nothing but hectic and hard. There's hardly any ease to any of it. It was problem after problem after problem after problem after argument after problem. And as you all know, in our religion, the purpose of man is to worship, not to suffer. So when it starts to feel like the purpose of life is to suffer, it's time to go ahead and start selling out and doing whatever the hell it takes to not suffer. Or fighting, whichever one. I prefer the fighting route in the long term, although selling out is easier short term. So as it stands, I watched the video by Oshay Duke Jackson. Oshay Duke Jackson hit the nail on the head. Shout out to him. He said that the black community does not treat black female nerds as harshly as it treats black male nerds. This is true. Edward Anderson also pointed out the same thing in his video about black female nerds not having swag, and he pointed out the fact that frankly the community does not treat those two the same. And he's right, the community doesn't. If you are black, the community is going to treat you terribly. But if you are a black male with a brain, the community treats you worse. It's unfortunate, but it is very true that black men are discouraged in the community when they're young from using the brain. Now, I tried to listen to Vicky Dillard's video about the arrogance of the educated lame. The video would just quit playing at 17 minutes and 51 seconds. I don't feel a guck whose fault it was. I quit trying. Because like I said, I'm no longer here to solve problems or fix stuff or suffer. I'm through with that. Video didn't play up. Screw it. Somebody else can fix it. I'll come back never. But I've been meaning to do this for a while, though. And I'm going to tell you straight like this. Oshay and Edward Anderson, shout out to them, were right. If you disagree with them, you're wrong. You can disagree with them regarding a specific community in which you may have grown up that may actually have been an exception. That's not wrong. But if you disagree with their point in the context of black America collectively, then you're just outright wrong and they're correct. And that's because the rule is the rule and the exception is the exception. So as a rule, black America discourages, especially at young ages, brains in men. And brawn in women is not necessarily discouraged. So if a girl is a brain or she is brawny, either way she could get her respect. But if a guy is anything other than bronze, and if he is a brain, he gets no respect. Forget about from white folks. He gets no respect from us. And this is why it is that intellect is looked down upon in a man, but swag is looked up to. I want to be honest about something else. Xanatos Clutch has pointed out how the community looks down upon what we call talking white. I'm not going to argue about that for this reason. When you're in corporate America, you have to code switch. And I disagree with his points about how we talk. I'm sorry, but if you sound like a white guy, then, and you're talking to black people, there is something wrong. It's not something wrong with your character. It's not that, but there is something wrong with the information that you may have. There is a reason that black people speak English in a manner specific to us and in a manner of which whites don't approve. I want this to be understood. When I'm talking about or fixing ills in the black community, I am not talking about meeting the white community's approval. Mark my words when I tell you this, and I'm not a follower of Farrakhan or Elijah Muhammad. No, not at all. I'm telling you that the Western European white man is a damn beast and a devil. Now, individually, you take them as they come, just like I do. And I work with some very good ones. But I'm telling you that collectively speaking, they are a society. They are an uncivilization of beasts and devils. And they deserve to be terrorized. So all their fears are not true. But morally speaking, it would be good if they were. Morally speaking, it's what they deserve if Arabs go over into Europe and proliferate and take over and wipe out white folks. As long as they don't replace white folks as devils and beasts. So when the white community approves of the way we talk to each other, that means we're speaking the wrong way to each other. I'm not talking about when we talk to them, but when we talk to each other. There's a reason that there is a Jamaican English. That was an attempt by the Africans taken to Jamaica to hold on to the languages while being forced to speak English. So this Africanized English that you hear in the island of Jamaica has a reason for it. The same thing with the French that is spoken in Haiti. Now, I don't really like French at all, period, to be honest. But the way that the Haitians speak French is unacceptable to the white French. Good. That means their French is superior. Our English is superior. Jamaican English is superior. Pidgin English is superior. The African languages are superior. End of story. Why? Well, because we're superior. Not because we were born that way or because being black makes you superior, but not being an oppressor and not being nourished by the fruits of somebody else's oppression does make you superior to those who do these things. End of story. You cannot sit up here and look at their society and say that it's equal to ours, morally speaking. They won because they were morally inferior. And that's what this world is like. This world is like that. If you're going to be morally superior, you will lose until you learn who is morally inferior and kick their behinds proactively. But if you don't know who they are at first, then it's not your fault you got taken by surprise by them. It's not your fault when you walk down a well-lit street and someone still jumps out and robs you. Or somebody passes you by and you didn't know he was a robber till he got close. That's not your fault that time. But now that you know that, the next time you see him, you should definitely make sure the police go after him. And if they don't, then you chase him down and stab him to death yourself. Saw his head off very slowly and make sure everybody sees it and tell them what he did. This fella mucker goes around robbing people. He ain't gonna rob nobody else no more. Now, I'm not saying it's legal. I'm just saying it's moral. So you shouldn't feel bad if someone does it. If you do it, you go to jail, so I wouldn't tell you to. But you got to understand that when somebody does do something that's moral, even though it's illegal, you do not side against that person. And what that has to do with the way we speak is that the way we speak is merely a manifestation of a type of rebellion against white folks. Linguistically, we can rebel against them. Militarily, we cannot. So what's wrong with us rebelling against them linguistically? Well, Xanatos Clutch actually has a valid point about the current generation, but not about the previous generation. See, our grandparents spoke AAVE, African American Vernacular English. Some of them spoke Gullah or Geechee. They spoke different regional varieties of AAVE. But what they spoke was actually a dialect of English that had its own rules, and its grammar was somewhat based on West African, and some of its vocabulary also was based on West African languages, particularly those that came out of the Mende family of languages. That's okay that we sound different from whites. We should. What the wuck I want to sound like one of them cracker devils for? I shouldn't. Something's wrong with me if I turn around to another black person and I'm indistinguishable from a white person when I speak. Now, if I was never around a bunch of black folks and I never learned the two codes, then I never learned them. And that's not something that for which I should be blamed, but it is okay for someone to ask me the question, did you never grow up around black folks? No, I did not. Okay, got it. It's okay for them to ask the question, obviously. It's the same thing if I had a Bayesian accent and someone asked me if I grew up in Barbados. Okay, it's that normal. But the young folks today, this is true. The young folks today have taken this anti-intellectualism to a new level, and that's why AAVE or Ebonics is becoming nonsense. No joke, it's starting to sound like a bunch of monkey chatter, and that's what mumble rap is about. We believe we are monkeys, so we have acted like monkeys, and now we're trying to sound like monkeys. And that's unacceptable. The flip side is not to sound like a Caucasian. That's not the answer. That's the opposite extreme, but that's not the answer. It's not the solution. But likewise, deciding that you want to irritate white folks does not mean that you turn around and make yourself sound like a damn monkey. You don't imitate monkeys just because you don't want to be like white folks. You don't turn around and meet their stereotypes of you in their minds to be different from them. Because you got to understand that while they're stereotyping you to be subhuman, they are in fact subhuman. As a society, I mean. You be different, you be distinct, not inferior, and not the negative stereotype they have. You don't go and rob white folks because they think that you're supposed to rob them. If you're going to rob them, you do it because that's your money that they're walking around with. Now, if you believe that, can you rob them? I'm not going to tell you to do it. I'm not supporting you in the robbery, but I'm damn sure not going to side against you, and I'm not going to let anybody else side against you either. Because I don't have a moral objection to you robbing white folks. Legally speaking, the cops do, and they're going to take care of that if they can catch you. But morally speaking, I'm not going to sit up here and say there's something wrong with you robbing white folks. No, it ain't a moral issue. It's against the law because it is actually the moral thing to do. It's just it's a question of the corrupt being in power. And right now, the most corrupt race of humanity is also the one in power over everybody else. So sounding different from them is a small price for them to pay. Them not understanding everything we say to each other is a small price for them to pay. And it is a small and darn near insignificant victory to us. But I said darn near. It's not insignificant. We should sound different, but not stupid. The problem is we ourselves don't know our own history, so they can tell us anything about ourselves, and they can convince us that we are whatever they want us to be, and we fell for it. And this is why we've got these two extremes that we have. On one end, man, you sound like a white dude. You will sell out right off the bat. Instead of saying, you sound like a white dude. Did you grow up around white folks? That's one extreme. Why don't you sound like a bunch of monkeys like us? Because our ebonics don't even make sense. I was like, woo, 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 you know what I'm saying? Know what I mean? And he came along, he was like, woo, woo, woo. And I said, well, what's up then? So, they was getting it up there. I mean, that's when you start mumbling to the point you're not intelligible, then at that point you have met your enemy's negative stereotype of yourself and made it a reality because you accepted it. That's an extreme. Talking to your own people as though you are not from among your own people when you can, in fact, code switch is another extreme. Neither one of these two is the answer. The answer is usually somewhere in between two extremes, especially when it comes to black folk, because we are a people that easily fall into one extreme or another. Look at the ADOS hashtag. It was started by a woman who's living an extreme lifestyle. And she wanted to specify the discussion on reparations. Now, that was a good idea, but the reason she wanted to specify it was because she knew other black communities outside of the U.S. ain't going to support that gay business she's into. That's what she knew. She knew them Caribbean people don't play that, and them Africans from the continent ain't playing that mess. They're sick of it being forced into their countries. And yes, it is being forced. Yes, there is an anti-black agenda, and it's gay. The leaders of this agenda aren't even gay themselves. They're just willing to use the gay community in order to neutralize the black community. That's all it is to it. An average gay person walking around isn't even aware of this. But there's still pawns and tools used in it because that agent software that tells them what to say jumps from person to person. It's already made the jump through the media. So they're going to talk those talking points that neutralize your blackness. And that's what they're there for. And the large part of this is because our community is so goddamn effing anti-intellectual. And this is not something that a lot of parents are teaching their kids. That's the sad thing. You see, every generation that comes up, every black generation that comes up through its teenage years is not anti-intellectual because the parents tell them, well, we're against this intellectualism in this brain. That's not why. They are that way because they learned this from the same place the previous generation learned it, watching TV that was allowed to babysit these kids when the parents are at work. You can't just let your kids watch TV because you're busy at work. You have to sit your kids down and you got to tell them, listen, Junebug, look, June, listen. When you watch TV, you got to understand that it is just entertainment. That's all. And really, you need to be reading books, to tell the truth. Entertainment is fine, but the TV is used to give you bad messages, and one of them is that you ain't supposed to be smart. That's not true. Black folk are supposed to be smarter than others. One, we're forced to be, and two others have already said that we were geniuses because we've been around the longest. This is what has to happen. You're going to get in the TV's trying to teach you that we really ain't that smart. That teenagers in general are stupid, and because you black, you're going to be even stupider, so that by the time you get to be a black teenager, you really think you're supposed to be stupid, and you become anti-intellectual. You become bothered by thinking and logic. No, we need to get out of this. You can't just you can't just not teach your kids this anti-intellectualism. They're going to pick it up through the TV and popular culture. You got to actively oppose it when they're young. And then we can get rid of this problem wherein we discourage our boys from having brains, and wherein we discourage each other from talking in a way that makes sense, any language at all, and any dialect of the language, and insist that in order for a young black man to be respected, he has to talk nonsense. That's foolish. See, AAVE has rules. You can tell when someone's speaking it naturally. You can tell when someone's faking it. It's just like Jamaican English. Jamaicans know the difference between a Jamaican and a Jafacan, because their English has rules to it. Yes, it's an Africanized form of English, but it evolved on an island, and it has rules to it. Same with us. And if you go there talking nonsense, trying to sound like a Jamaican, and they kick your behind, good. Excellent. It's the same thing with us. When you go into Jamaica and you're just talking nonsense, they know it's nonsense. When you go in there and you speak in the King's English, they know it's the King's English. But if you go in and you speak the King's British English to a Jamaican, and you're also a Jamaican, they're gonna turn and ask you why you putting on airs, why are you pretending? Because and that's exactly what I hear when I see somebody black that sounds like they're white when they talk to other black people. I say the same thing. Why are you pretending? Because I may not know. And some of them may say, well, I actually grew up around white folks. I didn't grow up around black folks. And I say, okay, I get it. All right, well, in some cases, you may not be able to speak or you'll get in trouble, but it's not going to be like that with me because now I know your situation. But no, if you have a choice, if you can help it, you don't come to me sounding like you're a Caucasian and you black. And if you're Caucasian, don't come to me trying to sound like you black. I don't want to hear that mess. The way you learn to speak a particular language growing up is how I would expect you to speak it. And if I don't understand your language, I just don't understand it. When Dominicans come to me speaking that fast Spanish with no S's, that changes the meaning of what they're saying, so I don't understand it. But I just tell them, look, I don't get it. We just have to use English. Sorry, your Spanish sucks. It's worse than mine. Just got to let them know. When Egyptians come to me with that botched Arabic they got, which is an inferior dialect, you can tell them I said it. I did that to an Egyptian today. He was mispronouncing one letter. He just kept doing it. I was like, I don't understand you. He kept trying to explain it. Man, I don't understand you, bro. I don't know that word. Tell me that word in English. Well, I can't say it in English. Well, it ain't got no meaning in Arabic, I bet you. So then he wrote it down. I was like, oh, you mispronounced this letter right here. That's why. It wasn't my fault I didn't understand you. It was yours. And when they do that, and I got to be a dick with them, it's because they're being inconsiderate. I'm not supposed to speak Dominican Spanish. I'm not Latino, let alone Dominican. I'm not supposed to speak Egyptian Arabic. They're not supposed to speak AAVE. I get it. There's no way for them to know this unless they watch a lot of TV and they already understand some basic foundational English. But it's not fair for me to expect them to land in the States speaking AAVE fluently. Why should they? They weren't exposed to it, at least not in a way they could actually learn it. Well, it's the same thing. If you're black and you grow up in the community, you grew up around enough black folks, you learn the code switch. If you didn't grow up around black folks and you can't code switch, fine, I get it. You might want to say so. I can't code switch. I don't know. I didn't learn it growing up. Okay, all right. You weren't exposed to it. Fair enough. But you turn around walking up, hi, how's it going, Shiny Black? Listen, Shiny Black, no, stop that mess. Now, that's if you can code switch. But there have been guys that come up to me, and I'm sure they could. They would say, well, no, there's only one type of English. Oh, really? So the Australians don't have their own kind of English? No, it's the Queen's English. Okay, so what you're saying is white English is the only real English. To hell with you. The curse of God be on you. You side with the oppressors and you legitimize them. Fuck you. I hope you rot in hell. And I mean that from the bottom of my black ass heart. You don't legitimize oppressors in front of the victims. It's not the way we do this. And the civilization of white folks is worse than any goddamn rapist out there. A rapist will rape victims till they get caught. And eventually they'll get caught and they're going to serve the time. White civilization, or rather white uncivilization, has trod the globe and nobody's there to arrest them and throw them in jail. They will steal your mind and your language if they can go that far. And they did. They did it to us. So for us having our own dialect of English that has some elements of the African languages we spoke, not one, but multiples that we spoke, still surviving in it is a small victory. And I'm not ready to just give that up in the name of intellectualism, nor am I ready to surrender that in favor of this monkey mumble that these young cats are running around here talking because they don't want to make any sense in front of people. I'm not ready to give that up for either one of these extremes. Fuck your white English. You use it as a weapon. That's it. And fuck this monkey mumble these kids are running around talking nowadays, trying not to make sense. Because that's also a capitulation of white supremacy. Forgive me for swearing, but that's real. You do not walk around here using inferior peoples and inferior civilizations as standards for morally superior ones to follow. You do not use materialism and selfishness as a standard for those who are content with their lives and happy to help others, for them to follow. You don't use devils as an example for human beings to follow. You damn sure don't use devils as an example for angels to follow. You keep this up, before we know it, we'll be sitting up here telling God that he needs to be more like Satan. At what point is it going to stop? Because some people don't deserve to be regarded as equals and considered equals to other folks. And likewise, there's some societies and cultures that don't deserve to be considered equals to others because they suck. And that's what this anti-intellectualism leads to in our community. And that is evidenced by the way we manifest it in our expectations of how someone's going to speak. AAVE, fine. Monkey mumble, what the hell are you doing? Why do you expect that these young kids are going to speak that? And why is it okay to speak that, which is somebody else's negative stereotype, but then it's wrong to speak the king's form of white English? Why is one right and the other one wrong? Both of them are capitulations to the oppressor. And let me tell you something else too. A lot of you may not realize this, but as African Americans, we do sound distinct to other people even though we're speaking English. When I speak English around here in this country in which I live and work, there are people that realize I'm African, that I belong to the race of Africans. Now, some people don't realize that. A lot don't. They ask me, why you talking like the slaves, until I tell them I'm actually black. Stop calling us slaves, you camel fucking terrorist. Now that puts a stop to it. But there are times when there have been black citizens of this country that have heard me speak English and they realize that I'm African American. And they say, oh man, you're of African origin just like us. And I say, yep, proud of it too. We hit the genetic lottery, didn't we? There are times that this has helped out. So what I'm saying is that I want you to understand that on one hand, that monkey mumble don't make sense even to other black Americans. So why use it? And talking like you're white when you don't have to do that also can lead other people in other countries to assume that you side with white folks and everything. And they got folks in other countries that ain't ready to do that. That's real. I'm hoping that this has been a benefit. Assalamu alaikum.